Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of
Hello,
My Name is Hans,
I'm Edward.
and we are your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until one of us literally jumps into an Easter roll and goes to the land of Oz or whatever.
Yes.
And yeah.
Happy Easter to our listeners and watchers who do celebrate. We're actually recording this on Good Friday, and it will actually be posted on Easter Sunday. So, to those of you who do celebrate, we wish you all the best and many blessings. With that in mind, welcome to Gettle episode 86, where today we're going to be putting forward the question of, are cinemas still worth it or relevant in a post-pandemic world?
Spoiler alert. No, they're not.
They're
They're really
please.
not.
We actually want people to listen. So, it's interesting also to say post-pandemic, because I don't believe we're actually in the post-pandemic period yet, since COVID is quite clearly not endemic yet, meaning that it hasn't fallen into a repeatable means of, affecting people. Much like the seasonal flu. It comes once a year. You kind of know when it comes. COVID is kind of just everywhere still at the moment, and you can catch it multiple times, even though you've been vaccinated and you've had it before. So it's a rather strange thing. I kind of feel that it's just the pandemic is just continuing, and we're not really getting an endemic virus here, and that we're just going to have COVID at all times now. But anyway,
Yeah, pretty much.
that aside, back to the question of, are cinemas worth it? Especially given the last 2 to 3 years of the pandemic that many of us have experienced, whereby a lot of businesses and places closed down. Cinemas in particular in South Africa were closed for a very long time before eventually opening up at reduced capacity, whereby even now, 2 years into the pandemic, 2.5 years, cinemas are still operating at a reduced capacity, in the sense of it's every, if you go to the cinema and you sit in the cinema, the seat next to you on your left and the right are open. Personally speaking, it's much, much better, but we will maybe get to that in a little bit. So you heard Edward's first opinion. Hey, Ed, your initial gut response to this is no. Just no. It's not worth it. So before we continue into speaking about the benefits that the pandemic may have brought in terms of the cinema, as well as the negatives or the pros and the cons, tell me why. What is your initial reasoning for just being so vehemently no about the the situation?
Even before the pandemic, I was of the opinion that cinemas are just uncomfortable and overpriced, and unnecessary. It's you go to this dark ass dingy hole, which most of the time doesn't even smell nice. You sit down with overpriced popcorn, and you're not allowed to stand up for 2 hours. You're not allowed to speak to anyone, including those you're with, for 2 hours. You're expected to just sit and watch. Now, I appreciate that filming or viewing a film is somewhat different than binging a series with your family. But even then, I do like the social aspect of being at home in your home cinema much more, because it's just so much more better. If I want to go pee, I want to go pee. So, I don't want to miss the movie when I do.
You bring up a lot of extremely valid points, which echo to a large degree how I have come to feel about the cinema in both the pandemic and hopefully a post-pandemic world. Now, throughout the many episodes of Gettle, we're at 86 now, I have mentioned many times before that I was an avid cinema goer. So we started this podcast at the very beginning, before the pandemic actually began. Funny enough. This wasn't actually because of the pandemic. This was something we wanted to do, and we did it. Contrary to a lot of other, creatives out there. Anyway, as Edward can attest to, I am the cinema guy. I am the one who is always organizing with friends and family and being like, hey, there's a new Marvel movie. I'm booking like a slot of 10 tickets. Do you want one? You can just, pay me back later, whatever the case is. And
Good
then
times. I remember that.
yeah, right, making huge spectacles out of it and just enjoying the whole experience of all of us coming together. If we have time, then we'll have like coffee or something before the film. Then we'll all in the queue, we'll make jokes, as we're getting our, as Edward said, overpriced condiments. And then eventually going into the cinema, watching the film, and then everyone who's in the group coming out and all talking about, lauding about the latest thing, whether it was, how amazing Wakanda was, or, Doctor Strange and his abilities. And I know it's mostly the Marvel stuff, but honestly speaking, those are the universal ones that most people would go to watch versus something artsy fartsy like Robert Pattinson's latest Lighthouse movie, which was a couple of
Yeah,
years back.
yeah,
So
pretty much.
it's more for the everybody kind of films where you can all come together and just really enjoy it. So from that perspective, that more so is why I've loved always going to the cinema. It's the ability to experience it, the overall experience with the people you're with, and then having that immediate discussion either before or after, right?
Mm.
However, a lot of what you said about it is true. So I actually recently went to the cinema again for the first time in 2 years. We went to watch The Eternals. Okay. Perhaps not the best movie to break the the cinema fast that we were on. Um, but it really brought to light a lot of things personally for myself. And it echoes a lot of what Edward has just said now. And I am also genuinely curious to know how you think about these things, those of
Mm.
you who are listening and watching. So, as we're speaking, by all means, comment below or, text us or reach out to us on social media because we would love to know what you think about it and if you've been back to the cinema since the pandemic began and what you thought of it. So, my experience was negative. Not
Mm.
not because I wanted it to be, but more so because I've become comfortable with comfort.
That's such a weird thing to say.
As I know that's like it sounds so silly, right? It sounds stupid, but everything you've said makes sense. So the cinema going experience is you've got to get ready to go out, right?
Mm.
So you go. Then you either have to pre-book a ticket, especially if it's a big popular movie,
Yep.
or buy one there or on your phone or whatever the case is, right? And then, in terms of the ticket, depending on how you're watching it, in which case I would say the IMAX is the best way because it's best sound, best image quality. But then you're looking at about $20 to 250 Rand per person. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but that's technically a meal, right? A full on meal sitting
Yeah.
down at a restaurant to feed yourself. Okay. So then there's that expense, and that's not including the petrol that it costs you to drive there, the wear and tear on your car, the time of travel. Then when you're there, it's the overpriced condiments. We're talking about what is it for? It's like $10 for or more, $10 or $15 for like a
Oh, it's
large popcorn,
expensive.
which is just
Yeah.
ridiculous in its own right. It's like half the price of the movie ticket, right? It's like 115 Rand or whatever.
Not even.
So
It's
because the cinemas don't allow you to take your stuff in, right? So then there's that. Then there's the whole waiting in queues. Then it's eventually getting into the cinema and sitting in the seat. And the biggest thing for me, and I think maybe my memory was skewed as to how much I used to love going to the cinema before, but my goodness, are the seats uncomfortable.
yeah.
And I'm not
Bad.
talking about now some dingy backwater cinema that doesn't get updated. I'm talking about so in South Africa, we have two major cinema chains. We have New Metro and we have Ster-Kinekor. Ster-Kinekor's cinemas are leagues above New Metro, in my personal opinion, from comfort to amenities to convenience. So I naturally gravitate towards IMAX because best picture, best image, and generally some of the more comfortable seats.
Yeah.
With that said, I am 6'5", so generally I don't often fit comfortably in a lot of seats, and I had obviously forgotten how uncomfortable cinema seats are. And we went into this IMAX theater and I sat into the seat and I was like, for a good 10, 15 minutes, actually, no, that's a lie. For the entire duration of the 2.5 hour film, The Eternals, I was uncomfortable. I couldn't find a comfortable means of sitting because if I sat up straight, my head was well and above the seat itself, therefore blocking the people behind me. But then at the same time, where does my neck go for 2.5 hours? I'm not saying that I can't keep it up. It's just, you want to be comfortable. You want to like be relaxed.
Yeah.
And it was just an overall very uncomfortable feeling, including I couldn't put my legs fully out because I'm quite tall.
Mm.
Maybe shorter people won't have these issues, but I still beg to differ because I was with somebody. Obviously, I didn't go watching alone. And she found the seats to be just as uncomfortable, and she's much, much shorter than I am.
Mm.
And, you know, the funny thing was, after we had finished watching the film, which wasn't very good to begin with, but I don't really feel the film would make much of a difference to the overall physical experience, was just how uncomfortable we both felt. And not uncomfortable in, oh, we feel out of place, oh, pandemic, people around us. Uncomfortable as in, these seats are not that comfortable. You know, how am I going to get comfortable in the seat and then also to keep quiet with the other people that are around you? Not to mention the
Yeah.
people who are eating and taking out their phones. And now this is the weird part, right? So watching movies at home, people do the same. The difference though is that, like, I don't know, I find that that's not in your face.
Yeah.
Because the way the cinemas are structured is that you have people in front of you. Whereas if you're at home, you're generally all sitting towards you, the
In a
sides of each other.
circle. Yeah.
So even if somebody's on the phone next to you, you barely see it, right? But in the cinema, the light will come blaring in this totally dark atmosphere, and you'll be like, "Can you just please put that off?" Anyway, I'm getting ahead of
Yeah, like
myself here. But basically, what it all came down to was comfort.
Yeah.
And this is where Edward made such valid points. So what I didn't realize is in the 2 years of being in this pandemic, I have become comfortable in wearing my comfort clothes, right? I mean, clothes in general are comfortable, but there's a huge difference between being in your comfort wear
And
and
you're
then
out
being in
where
like your jeans and like a tight top or whatever the case is. You know what I'm talking about? There
yeah.
is a difference. So there's that. Then it's being able to pause the film whenever you feel like it.
Mm.
Oh, you want to have a hot chocolate? Boop. You pause, you get up, you make it. Everybody laughs. You start handing out cookies and some chocolates, make drinks for everybody, and then you come back and you sit and you press play, and hey, the movie just carries on from where you left off.
Exactly.
Now, of course, there are other elements like, oh, the big screen and the better sound, and now this is where I suppose our privilege, Edward, is going to show.
Yeah.
But then again, at the same time, I feel that almost anybody could enjoy this kind of thing at quite a low expense.
Easy.
So first of all, we're lucky enough to have a rather large TV, right? It's a beautiful
Mhm.
65-inch OLED, so I'm spoiled that way. Because
Mm.
65 inches is big, especially when you're only sitting like 3 meters, 2.5 meters in front of it, right? So I feel like I'm getting that experience anyway. In terms of sound, I have these incredible AirPod Maxes. I put these on, and all of a sudden, I have Dolby Atmos while I'm watching whatever it is that I'm watching on the Apple TV. Now, I understand most people might not have that, but even if you're just using basic headset, you're still having the audio directly into your ears. So there's not like munches of popcorn somewhere or something else happening in the cinema or a bad air conditioner in case that's not working properly. You get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
There's no ambience outside of what is in your home. And generally
Exactly.
speaking, a lot of the times when people watch a movie, it's quiet. You know you're all going to watch something. The children are probably asleep. You hope. And if there is a noise, then you need to be concerned. But that's a
Exactly.
very, very South African thing, I suppose, there. And so it's just I'm not sad I did the experience, but when I
Mhm.
weigh up the stuff, when I weigh up the fact that I had to get ready to go out, drive there, pay money for parking, pay money, for so let's say it was 15 Rand for parking, 250 Rand for the ticket, another 200 Rand just to take popcorn and like a drink into the film. More because if it's a 3D movie, you have to pay for the glasses as well. Then sitting in somewhat uncomfortable seats, not being able to go to the bathroom whenever you feel like it because then you'll miss the movie, and then having the potential of other people around you as well. When you take all of that into consideration and you look at the cost, let's just say for one person, so just for myself, for example, right? I'm looking at what, three, four, 450 Rand just to go watch a new movie. Whereas if I'm at home, I can rent said movie for 250 Rand. Everybody in the household can watch it, and you can pause it, and you can do whatever
Mm,
you want. You can even watch it, you can start it, stop it, come back a couple of hours later if you have to, and keep watching. It's just such a, you know, it's difficult. It's really challenging to move on from being so comfortable to doing something uncomfortable for something that you could just do at home just as good. That's
exactly.
my whole thing about it.
See, th- and that everything begs the question on why Hollywood and, well, yeah, still insists on releasing movies in theaters. It's such a
So
weird thing to me.
no, it's this is interesting, right? So if anybody's interested, in episode 85, we spoke about subscriptions, in particular with
Mm,
regards to video games, and how I brought up the point of arguing how the subscription-based methods of of uh, of procuring video games will probably be the future because it's more sustainable than standalone.
mm,
I think there is something very similar happening with movies and
mm,
Hollywood as a whole. And this comes down to how the models we previously spoke about are archaic in nature. They've always been done. And so there are boomers who are in power, which continuously think in a very old way without modernizing without modernizing things, right? Like the movie going example is a perfect one. So because of the pandemic, studios were forced to at some point release movies either day and date with movies that were on cinema, as well as being released at home, or maybe 7 days later or 30 days later. I know that Warner Brothers has a partnership with HBO Max. I think they actually own HBO,
mm.
where 30 days after a cinema release, the film will come out onto HBO Max, and you can watch it.
Yeah.
You can watch it for I think it's 30 days or 2 weeks to 30 days, and then it goes off the service again. So it's not like it's there permanently. Personally speaking, that's brilliant because we live in an age now where pandemics, first of all, can happen at any time, right? This
Yep.
is not going to be the last one. We may have more in the future, but more so than that, allow us to watch it at our convenience. Like the fact that movies are still coming out in cinemas and not day and date available for purchase or streaming boggles my mind because personally speaking, if a see, okay, I suppose this is where it comes in. But then again, at the same time, maybe not. So one of the big metrics that Hollywood uses is ticket sales, right? Where they're like, oh, this film earned $500 million at the box office. And
Yep.
the recent Spider-Man No Way Home is a great example of this. Actually, it ended up grossing over $1 billion.
Yeah, it's
Now, those
huge.
ticket sales, I guess, make sense because you're able to count each individual one. So if four people go to the cinema, that's four individual sets of eyes that are watching it and four separate payments.
Yep.
Whereas if you watch at home, it's one purchase, but four people could be watching. Do you get what I'm saying? So maybe that's where the major metric is, where you're not
Mm,
actually able to determine how many people have watched it, despite the money being similar.
yeah, see,
Or
that's the thing.
actually, money would still be less, to be honest, because you know I can pay once and four people can watch versus each of us paying to watch the same thing. So I
But
guess maybe that's it. Maybe it's just capitalism. It's just money.
but even then, it feels weird because movie tickets themselves aren't that expensive. Everything else surrounding the tickets are expensive.
No, I beg to differ. I think 200 Rand or $20 for a ticket is costly, in my opinion.
It's
Especially when you put into consideration how renting a film is the same price.
does that
Even
still
buying
exist?
it sometimes is the same price. Did you know that? If you
No,
look at the iTunes store, you can probably rent a film in South Africa for like 120, 150 Rand, and you can buy it for 250 Rand. Why then would you want to go watch the same movie in the cinema once for 230 Rand?
see, that's weird though because it still makes it less. Um, what's the word? It's less of
You,
an incentive for people to go to the cinema for a single watch than telling a family, "Hey, you can buy this once. and watch it for an entire 30 days until the rental goes away via iTunes
Mm.
store or whatever. If people are given the incentive, they'll watch it more. They'll be more keen to spend money. Like for instance, a good example would be the Witcher series. Now I know it's not a movie, but that broke all the records financially and viewership and all of those.
Do you mean on Netflix?
Yes, on Netflix. Now, if it did that, why would a movie not? I bet you No Way Home would have broken even more if that released
I
on Disney Plus
I think,
first.
Ed, I think it's money. Um,
Hmm.
the thing is, well, yeah, I don't know. You look, you bring up a good point, right? So,
Hmm.
would it
Maybe
have
it's
still earned $1 billion? That's my question now.
easily, I
If
think.
they had offered the movie for a $20 rental, day and date,
Hmm.
as the cinema release, but let's assume it didn't release in cinema, right? Let's just say it was a big movie release and they released it on the 1st of April, $20 just for the month of April, and it was $20 per watch. In other words, you rent it, and that rental lasts for 24 hours, right? So you have to watch it within 24 hours. Would it have still reached $1 billion? I think what you're saying is true because I believe at that point in time, you'll get repeat watches. So
Yeah.
it's not that people don't repeat when they go watch in the cinema, because some people do that, but I think you're more inclined to repeat a rental at home than you are to at the cinema.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I know
Yeah.
many people who would, for example, watch Spider-Man and they'd be like, "Oh, let me watch it again because it was so good."
Yeah.
Right?
Um, I know
Right? I
one of
mean, you're
those
one of these
people.
people. You want
I
to,
am
yeah,
one of
yeah,
those
that's
people.
exactly it. So, that in
So,
itself. So, look, we are a newer generation.
hmm.
We, even before the pandemic, wanted this kind of a thing. It's for years now, we've wondered why on earth, given how digital the world is, there is no day and date release for these films. It makes zero sense that you have to have it in the cinema first for 3 to 6 months before it comes to a video on demand. It does. It
Yeah,
just makes zero
it's
sense.
odd.
Just if it's done, make it available. Boom, done. And a lot of these studios and things will cite piracy, but I mean, it's such a small amount of people who do that.
Hmm.
I think it's like negligible. I think it's like 2 or 3% out of all of the hundreds of thousands or millions of people that end up actually watching the content legally. It's a very, very small percentage.
Exactly.
Hollywood wants to make it seem a lot worse than it is, but but even then, there's been actual studies which showcase that people who pirate are more inclined to buy the things they like than they are than those who buy things legally. I
Yeah.
know how weird that sounds, but that's just the
That's
truth.
how it is.
So
Yeah.
imagine a model where they give you a rental, a 24-hour rental, right? For let's say $20. And then after the 30-day launch window, you can buy it for $40.
Yeah. I dig that.
I would do that. I would
Like,
happily spend $60. I know that now maybe that sounds a bit like, oh, but that's so, but not really. Because if I've watched it with 4 people initially for $20 and I like the movie so much that I now want to own it, I will buy it.
exactly.
Easy. No
It's
problem.
exactly the same.
Because
It's
then it's
just
mine.
digital now.
Well, that's not really mine, but that's a discussion for another day. Digital purchases and
Yes.
whether or not they're actually worth it.
Digital
That's a good one.
licenses.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll pin that for next week. Actually,
That's a good one for gaming as well.
oh, it's for everything.
Oh,
Actually, Ed.
yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
I know that Ed gave the answer away at the beginning of this episode, but the more we really think about it, the more I want day and date digital releases. Like
hmm.
here's a really good one, right? So I wanted to watch Spider Man in the cinema. But after my experience with the Eternals, I was so off put by it. I
Hmm.
didn't, especially when I heard that it was like a 2.5 hour movie, I was like, you know what? I don't want to go and sit and be uncomfortable for 2.5 hours in the cinema.
Yeah.
Even though there's amazing picture in my face and the audio is awesome and whatever. And I do not regret watching it at home because,
No.
first of all, I had the 7.1, right? Which I'm lucky enough to have. And I know not everybody does, but I have it. And it had great picture quality because I was able to stream it in 4K Dolby HDR. And then immediately after that, I was able to talk to my family about it because we all watched it together and how brilliant it was and how amazing it was to see all the throwbacks to the original movies. And the entire time we were comfortable. I was
Yeah.
able to recline my seat, you know? I
That's
was,
the thing. Like, I am the biggest Spider-Man fan. And even I waited the 6 months or whatever it was, the 4
No, it wasn't
months.
6 months. I think it
No, it was
was
like 4 months or
like, when did it come
something.
out? In December, hey? And then it came out
I'll,
in March. I
I'll
think it was
quickly
3
check.
months. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But watching it in the comfort of my own home was still so much better, and now I completely blanked on what I was going to say.
Do you know what is also interesting about this whole thing? Is
Mm.
the aftermarket for videos
What?
is big. I mean, if we look at straight to home, the video market, I mean, that made the Olsen twins billionaires. You know
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep.
So it therefore stands to reason that Hollywood is just full of crap, because if the aftermarket videos are able to perform so well, it doesn't make sense then that you should keep segmenting this market,
Yeah.
right? Hey,
That's
that
exactly how
sounds
I
like a
feel about it
logical
as well.
assertion, right?
I mean, who's that? The Clark Kent Adventures actor, Dean Cain.
Yeah.
He is an infamous. Well, he's a famous direct-to-video star. And he has a super comfortable millionaire life just out of straight to
So
DVD.
is what's his name? Steven Seagal.
Yeah,
That
especially
guy
lately.
hasn't
Yeah,
been in anything that is considered cinema worthy for years, but he is living his millionaire lifestyle because every single time he releases one of these horrible Fast and the Furious budget, like terrible movies, people watch it because they love it.
yeah. It's got a massive audience. And I would say anyone, like occasionally I'll flip through all the channels. My mom's still got DSTV, and there
Oh,
would be a Steven Seagal
ads.
movie on like TLC
Oh, that
or
brings up another
whatever
point.
the shit.
When you go to watch the movies, you have to watch ads first.
Yes, like a million of them.
So you're paying to watch ads and be uncomfortable. That's basically what it
Yes.
comes down to when you go to the cinema.
Yeah. 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 Uh,
So with all of this said and in mind, what do you think? You know? Oh, do you disagree with us? Oh, are you like, oh, you guys are home peasants, cinema's where it's at? Or do you agree with us? Do you agree that, you know what, I would rather pay, even if the price was a bit more, right? Let's say the cost of entry for a rental was $30 instead of the $20 for a single ticket, or even $40. I can tell you now, I would even pay up to $40 for a rental of a movie,
man.
which works out to about like 500 Rand, hey?
Yeah, about.
Um,
But this
okay,
brings back.
that's going a bit high. That's getting a little
This
bit to
brings
the high
back
point.
ebook PTSD.
But no, actually, I wouldn't pay. I wouldn't pay $50 for a rental. I
Listen,
think $20 is a sweet spot, to be
if
honest
it
with you.
were the same price, okay, and you, let's say, because at the moment it doesn't work like that. At the moment, subscriptions are just you get the thing, and for how long ever it's on the platform, you can watch it. Let's say they do allow you to buy a ticket, a 24-hour ticket to the movie at launch. Let you watch it, and then it goes away unless you buy the ticket again until it
Yes,
becomes freely available on the platform. I
but
would
that's called a rental,
subscribe to that.
Ed. It's called
Even
a
then,
rental.
yeah. So day one rentals, launch day rentals. I
Yeah.
would subscribe to that. I
No, but you don't have to
don't
subscribe.
mind
That's the
that.
beauty of it.
No, but
Because
I mean,
the movie. Look, iTunes does this. iTunes has this thing where they're like available to rent until. And at first they're like available to rent this date, right? So you can pre-order your rental. Funny enough.
yeah,
Then the day comes, and then you have 24 hours from actually renting it
yeah,
to watch the whatever it is, the movie, the movie generally.
yeah,
Then they'll have another pre-order date for when you can actually own a digital copy. But
yeah,
until that point, you can rent it as many times as you want.
yeah. But the biggest issue is that that's not usually available for stuff like Spider-Man: No Way Home and The
Yes.
Eternals.
So that's
And
where that issue comes in. So
yes,
the way that it is now at the moment is it's staggered. So you'll have the movie come out in like December 2021.
yeah,
Then the rentals will only begin in like February, March.
yeah,
So
usually
like 2
like
or 3
2
months
weeks
later.
before
And
the
then a
DVD
month
release.
after the rentals, you can actually buy the digital version.
Yeah,
or the physical Blu-ray, if physical is still something that you guys do. I don't know why anybody does physical anymore, but some people do apparently.
Yeah.
Something about owning a physical copy, even though the copyright on the disc tells you that you don't own it. So
Didn't we
just
have
saying.
that discussion in the past as well? I feel like we did.
We've touched upon it, but we haven't actually spoken about it properly. And although I'm quite keen to do it now, I do feel that warrants its own episode.
Yeah, it's a big discussion.
So there we go, y'all. You've discovered what episode 86 of Get It will be like. So if you want to hear us talk more about digital ownership and licensing, then do please subscribe, because that will be a future episode. And what's nice about that is that it ties in with everything, because then we can once again talk about the subscriptions in episode 85 and then the movie scenario in 86, which is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm actually quite excited for that.
Yeah, actually.
87 sorted a whole week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. That's actually brilliant. Ed, is there anything else that you want to mention or talk about with regards to this?
I think how thorough going into this conversation, okay? I thought we were just gonna say like, yeah, I like it and this is why. Yeah, I don't like it and this is why. I dig this conversation. I think we covered everything.
I mean, look, it's a very real one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I didn't even speak about the benefits. So just a quick one. I know I've spoken about a lot of the negatives, but one of my biggest favorite benefits of the whole pandemic movie situation is that there's space next to you when you go to the cinema now.
Yeah,
and I really don't want that to go away. Honestly, there's nothing worse than going into a really fully packed cinema and everybody's on each other. It's just, once again, it makes it an uncomfortable experience. Like, why do I want to be around people who smell and eat loudly and cough, which could be a disease that I can get?
Or people who are on their phones even and speak.
Whereas if you're at home, in the comfort of your own home, you generally have a lot of space.
Exactly.
You can eat what you want. You could actually, what's nice is, I don't know if you've done this, but we do this a lot. We actually order in and then we watch a movie.
Yeah.
So
usually when we do ordering, we'll watch a movie.
But
that's like the
but how nice
go-to.
is that? So now, to be devil's advocate on that, now I didn't mean to keep going on with this conversation, but Stu Kinnick has this thing called Prestige, where you can actually lie down in the cinema and you can also order food. So perhaps I would say that is still an experience that I may want to do every now and again, But then again, at the same time, I literally replicate that experience in my own home. So why do I want to pay for that privilege when I already have it?
Exactly.
That's the real question here. Why do you want to pay for the privilege of doing these things when you can literally do them in the safety, comfort, and enjoyment of your own home with your own family?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's it. But as we always say, what do you think? Are we wrong here? Do you agree? And
hit us with some facts. Give us your big take on this, and we'll have a conversation. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, there we go. I believe we have reached the natural conclusion to Gettle 86. If you enjoyed, please do like, subscribe, but most importantly, share with those that you care about. And until our next episode, we all hope that you've had a wonderful Easter, and we look forward to you hearing from us again very soon. Ciao for now.
Bye.